What's up, and welcome back to Cardinal Territory. I'm Katie Woo. He's Trevor Rosenthal. As always, we're just happy to be here. Trevor, how are you? How's your Monday going?
Yeah, same. I'm super happy to be here, Katie. Been looking forward to this. Every time we record and talk Cardinal baseball, I'm getting more and more excited. Obviously, the season is drawing near. It may not feel like it in St. Louis. It seems to be rather cold and snowy right now. It doesn't quite feel like baseball, but we're getting closer every day.
Yes, for those of you in St. Louis, I am so sorry. I hope you are staying warm. I've been in California visiting my family for the holidays and was supposed to come back this week. And then I saw the weather report and I said, maybe not. So I'm still in Northern California, not to rub it in, but it is 65 degrees and sunny and beautiful. And maybe I'll play golf tomorrow. Who knows? Trevor, how's the weather out there in Texas? How's it like for you?
Yeah, this is the time of year where it pays off to live in Texas, much like California. Um, over the years, like I always spent my off seasons in St. Louis, especially while I was playing for the Cardinals. And it always made me like, when I went down to spring training in February, I would always think to myself, why do I stay in the Midwest in the wintertime? It's so nice down here south. And I understand why people make that move or temporarily relocate for the wintertime, call them snowbirds, whatever. But but Texas is great right now, and yeah, no snow. It's about a little bit colder. We had a little bit of a cold front. It's about 50 degrees down here in Houston, but not the teens that I've seen from my friends up in St. Louis. And I saw some video from them out their front door, and it looks like they weren't going anywhere today. They were pretty much snowed in.
Yes, I think that's like the one good thing about a snow day is you have every excuse to not do anything and not leave your house. And that is how I embrace January in St. Louis. I just don't ever leave. And before you know it, we will be in Jupiter, Florida. I know this because this morning I booked my spring training, like Airbnb, my rental car, all of that is done. So we are officially getting closer and closer to baseball, so that's exciting. Unfortunately for Cardinals fans and Cardinal Nation, not a lot going on at the moment, but we did hear from Cardinals president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak. He talked to KMOX, Tom Ackerman, on Sunday and gave us a little update on the Nolan Arenado front. He said, spoiler alert, it's been very quiet. Went on and told Tom Ackerman as well. He said, that if the Cardinals have the ability to find Nolan a place he desires, it's something we are going to try to do. If not, he will have to be a club move forward. So, okay, what does that mean for the Cardinals in the short term? It means if you are pretty much over the lack of news, then you would like really get invested in something happening with the Arenado front, because if the Cardinals can't really do anything until they know what they're doing with Nolan. And that was a fine storyline in November and December where I think everyone, whether you were front office, media, player, fan, could kind of understand in November and December why the Cardinals had to be patient. It's January 6th as we're recording this. This will air tomorrow, January 7th. And the Cardinals are still in the exact same place. They have not really made any kind of moves. And the reason that that's, why they've unfortunately been kind of hindered by that is because they cannot really figure out what they're going to do until they know what their finances look like. And they will not know what their finances look like until they know what's going on with Nolan Arenado. So this is why if I am a member of the St. Louis Cardinals, if I'm a Cardinals fan, if I'm a baseball fan in general, all eyes for me are going to be on Alex Bregman's free agent market. Here's why. Alex Bregman has down to three teams, citing the reports from Mark Feinsand of MLB. Great guy, great reporter, says that there are three teams left in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes that we know of. They are the Detroit Tigers, the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Boston Red Sox. Now, if Alex Bregman signs with the Tigers or the Blue Jays, the Red Sox could pivot, right? They could pivot and say, hey, we missed out on a premier third baseman, the best available third baseman in the market. Why don't we go see if we can trade for another great third baseman? But if Alex Bregman goes to the Red Sox, Trevor, where is Nolan Arenado going to go? Is he going to stay in St. Louis?
It would seem that way, Katie. I'm envious of these large market or big market teams and their ability to go out and sign these free agent players. But yeah, I mean, what are the implications? I know you mentioned Mozeliak and KMOX and Ackerman. I agree. Ackerman, I've really enjoyed working with him and seeing all that he does over there. But yeah, what do you think? What happens if Arenado? I know we've talked about it, but if he ends up being in St. Louis, does that disrupt the potential offseason plans that they might have?
I think it does. I think it does. And the reason why is because I think both Mo and Nolan were pretty confident that a trade could have been made. And remember, in the beginning of the offseason, they were both very agreeable about why this was the best situation for both parties. This was not something that Nolan said, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. Get me out of here. And this was not Mo saying, we're trading you regardless. Both parties saw the future of the Cardinals, where the team is trending, and said it's probably best for both of us if we part ways. A very amicable breakup. Not that I know anything about those. However, as we get closer and closer to spring training, Nolan's market is getting smaller and smaller. He vetoed a trade to Houston, which is his right. We've talked about that on Foul Territory on this show as well. Doesn't seem like the Dodgers were in play. There's been speculation to the Yankees, but they don't really seem to be fully into it. The mystery about the Boston Red Sox is we don't really know what they want other than maybe adding another right-handed bat. They already traded for Garrett Crochet, but now they want to try to maybe increase their offense. If they miss on Alex Bregman, could they get Nolan? Maybe, but the Cardinals can't bank on that. They can't bet on Nolan not being here next year. So everything else is kind of on standstill. And there are things the Cardinals want to do. They were trying to look at maybe improving something on the pitching side, whether it was getting some depth in the rotation or depth in the bullpen. Now, these weren't going to be like blockbuster signings, but they were going to be free agent signings nonetheless. If Nolan Arenado stays, they have to get creative and move the money from that they were potentially planning to move off the books with the trade of Nolan from somewhere else. Whether that's trading Eric Fetty, Steven Matz, maybe revisiting. This is all speculation from my part. This part here, revisiting Sonny Gray, seeing if he is like still wants to be here. Revisiting Ryan Helsley, just kind of seeing what's going on because they have to move the money from some part. That's part one. Part two, they also are kind of blocking their whole youth movement, right? Because you have two veterans on the corners now if Nolan stays. You have Contreras at first, you have Nolan Arenado at third. Where is Nolan Gorman going to play? Where is Alec Burleson going to play? You go down the list. Was Thomas AJC going to be on the opening day roster? Hard to say, right? So to me, it just complicates everything else if Nolan stays. And that's why I'm so invested in what happens on the Alex Bregman market.
Yeah, I would say, as a Cardinals front office, or if I'm a John Mozeliak, I'm very hopeful that a team like Boston, if they miss out, for example, on Alex Bregman, that they're very motivated to bring in a player like Arenado, and St. Louis could benefit from that. So I agree. It's all eyes should be on Bregman, especially in regards to Nolan Arenado. And if I'm Nolan, I'm also interested in what happens with Bregman. If we look at Nolan Arenado's career, he's essentially been the gold standard for a third baseman in his market. And to see what happens with Bregman, what team signs him, what type of contract he gets, I don't know how that will affect the psychology of Nolan Arenado, but he's certainly going to be cognizant of it, and it might influence how he thinks about being traded and the potential team that does make an offer to St. Louis.
That's so interesting, right? Like the psychological element. If Nolan was like, "Hey, I thought I was getting traded. Now I'm stuck on it." Well, not I don't want to say stuck. I don't want to speak for him, but now I'm back with the Cardinals, and nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted to trade for me except for the Astros, which I denied because I just didn't think I was ready. Now everything is super complicated. I wonder what that does for a player because it can go one of two ways, right? It can become a mental issue. You can compound it. You can press, and that's never good for anyone. Or you channel into motivation and you pop off. And Nolan has never really been one that, really hangs his head and feels bad for himself. If he ends up staying with St. Louis, he's going to be a pro about it. I have zero concerns about that. My concern if he stays is how are the Cardinals going to move forward with their youth movement, as they'd like to advertise it, and how do they figure out what they have in 2026 with someone that they actively tried and said publicly they wanted to trade. It is a fascinating little development, and it, to me, kind of makes up for the fact that there has been no other movement for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I think the most likely scenario is one like we saw with Houston. You know, the ownership and front office group down in Houston, as soon as they knew that Arenado wasn't an option, the next day they go out and sign Christian Walker to a deal. And I see that being the most likely scenarios in terms of Nolan is when a team realizes that Bregman is off the block and they no longer have that opportunity. Most of the time they still want to fill that gap that they were trying to replace. And if Arenado's the only option, we still have Pete Alonso out there. So, two big corner infield free agents that have yet to be signed. But once those guys are off the board, I think things will really pick up. And that's another reason to pay attention to this development.
Completely agree. And at least we know the Cardinals are very motivated to trade Nolan. It's not something that they themselves are dragging their feet on. They're just kind of at the mercy of the rest of the industry. Let's talk about the rest of the industry. There have been a lot of free agent signings outside of St. Louis, but don't worry, Cardinals fans, the Cardinals are not alone. So as of our record day, Monday, January 6th, there are 6 teams in Major League Baseball who have not spent one single dollar in free agency. They are in no particular order. Where is my list? There it is. The Mariners, the Marlins, the Padres, the Brewers, the Twins, and the Cardinals. That is surprising. Now, granted, all 6 of these teams are in different areas in terms of their competition window and financially, but man, it's weird, right? To not hear that the Cardinals have spent $1 in free agency. So we'll leave the Cardinals aspect out of this next question, Trevor. But talking about MLB at all, like overall, what's been your favorite free agent signing?
Yeah, there's been a lull in the market in terms of just like the middle to bottom tier, in my opinion. Hasn't been a lot of signings, especially when it comes to pitching. But the one that stands out, I'm going to talk about it because it's pretty astonishing to see the type of contract that this player signed. Juan Soto to the New York Mets. Man, talk about a big time contract for a great player. I mean, I played with Juan Soto in 2019, and I have nothing bad to say about the guy. He's a tremendous player, tremendous teammate, tremendous human being, and I'm super happy for him. But man, to see that type of deal get done, I know it can't be easy, but it's exciting. If I'm a Mets fan going into this season and really going into the next decade, I am pumped right now. But that's probably not even my most favorite. It's my most favorite in terms of dollars. Like I would trade places with Wano in receiving, paychecks for sure. But I think the New York Yankees have done a great job of kind of responding to losing a player like Soto. Obviously, they signed Paul Goldschmidt, who we're all going to miss. I think Max Fried was another great signing to add into their rotation. But then, kind of under the radar, a couple of trades they made, bringing in closer Devin Williams and an outstanding left-handed bat in Cody Bellinger. So I think for me, I'm most impressed with what the Yankees have done. And then a side note to that would be a player that I've always admired, a starting pitcher with the Texas Rangers, Nathan Eovaldi. I was really happy to see him get another long-term contract. He's had an outstanding career. So, what the Yankees have done, with what the Rangers have done in signing and bringing back Eovaldi, all some really impressive moves, in my opinion. What about you, Katie? What's been your big standout?
My big standout, mainly because I was just so surprised by this. But when we talk about like big free agent spenders, we aren't talking about the A's. So that's why I loved Luis Severino's 2-year, $67 million contract to the No City Athletics. He has a player option for 2027. It is the largest free agent contract the A's franchise has ever given out. And why I liked this so much is there's been a lot of deserved negativity around A's ownership and the move from Oakland to Sacramento. And I'm a Bay Area girl. I know through and through what the A's mean to the Bay Area. Trevor, you were a part of the A's in 2021, so you understand like what that means there. It's deserved. But credit where credit is due. The A's showed like, hey, we're going to be playing in a minor league ballpark for like X amount of years. And we were pretty much, other than the White Sox, the like worst team in baseball in terms of overall vibes last year. But we're going to try to change that around and we're going to spend money. So they go out and they shell out their largest deal to Luis Severino. Happy for him. Super deserved. But they also showed that there is zero excuse for not spending money. If the A's can do it, so can you. I'm looking at 29 other teams. Well, not the Mets, they spent. The Dodgers, they spent. I'm looking at like 27 other teams. Spend some money. If the A's can do it, so can you. And I think maybe that's why there is frustration from the 6 teams we listed earlier, right? Like the Brewers have not spent a dollar, traded away their best closer to the Yankees, like you mentioned. The Marlins, rapid fire sale dating back to really the last trade deadline. The Padres, a lot going on over there. I don't even know how to make sense. Just saw the late Peter Seidler's widow, the prior owner of the Padres, is suing Peter Seidler's brothers. So that was some breaking news on Monday. So yes, there's a lot going on. But my favorite free agent signing so far has been Luis Severino to the A's because it showed that any team can spend. So let's keep it up.
Yeah. The only thing that could have made this offseason even better following, talking about the Oakland A's, if I had to bet anybody, I was after the Severino signing, they're going to end up getting the number 1 pick in the draft lottery. That was what I was thinking going into the winter meetings is the A's are going to end up with the number 1 pick and they're just going to be the place to be over the next few years. A new team, Vegas. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement and new branding to go along with it. And if I'm a player, I'm thinking this is an interesting place to be for the future.
Yeah, and I think the A's are kind of on the rise, dare I say. I like Brent Rooker. I think he's a baller, but they have some nice pieces coming up. And they also traded for Jeffrey Springs from the Tampa Rays shortly after Severino. So a team to watch because the Houston Astros, the usual powerhouse of the AL West, they are dramatically different this year. No Kyle Tucker, probably no Alex Bregman. We'll see. So I'm watching you, A's. All right. Will the Cardinals ever spend in the free agent market? We don't know. We certainly hope so. But in a perfect world, Trevor, again, we talked about this. They're going to have to figure out the Nolan situation before, if they spend money. But in your ideal world, who is the free agent you would go get right now, still available for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Yeah, depending on the Nolan situation, depending on their budgets financially, there's probably not a lot that they're willing or most likely going to end up doing. But I kind of think back to my time in St. Louis and where I saw St. Louis really thrive, at least while I was on the team, is in signing those middle relievers that maybe were coming off of a poor season, but had a nice track record, and they were able to bring guys in. A couple guys that come to mind: Pat Neshek, Edward Mujica, guys that they signed for really just a major league invite and a minimum salary, and ended up being all-stars. So my mind goes there. I'm thinking if there's anything that St. Louis will have the ability to do, it would be signing a player like that. And there's a lot out there, actually. A couple that I really am interested in. 2 guys that I've been teammates with, George Lopez, who bounced around with a couple teams last year. I played with him in Kansas City. He's a hard-throwing right-hander who has really taken form in the last few years. He has a great arsenal. He's put up good numbers. He's been pretty durable. I think he's a guy that they should be considering. He could fit nicely into the back end of the bullpen, give Helsley some help. And then another one is maybe not so obvious is Tim Hill. Tim Hill was with the New York Yankees last year, a left-handed pitcher. Another guy, he's been durable. He goes out there, he takes the ball, and he can deliver in high leverage situations and really just eat up innings to go along with that. So those are my 2 guys that are options for maybe under the radar. And then I have another 2, Katie, if you don't mind. I have another 2.
Fire away. I want to know.
These other 2 are maybe exciting to our listeners that, in my opinion, who are out there who are options to bring in the bullpen, maybe not cost a ton of money, maybe a little bit more than Lopez or Hill, but there's 2 familiar names: Shelby Miller for one, and Joe Kelly. 2 guys that are most likely at the tail end of their careers, coming off of decent seasons. Joe Kelly was not as active as Shelby. Shelby had a nice little run the last few years and really has emerged as a solid bullpen option. But two guys that I think are obviously familiar with St. Louis, but I think that the St. Louis front office should be entertaining and bringing in a veteran presence, guys with a lot of experience, not only on the field but also in the clubhouse, and that's something to be aware of. Filling the void in the clubhouse of veteran players that can have a good impact on this wave of hopefully a young roster that we're going to see in 25. What about you, Katie? Did I steal any from you?
No, I thought for sure you would, but I love, the Cardinals love their veteran presence, and this makes a lot of sense to get one of those guys because outside of Housley, it's a pretty young and inexperienced. Doesn't mean they won't be good. I actually still think the bullpen will be good, but it's a young and inexperienced core nonetheless. So having one of those guys, I think back to 2021, Andrew Miller wasn't like lighting up the radar gun by any means, but he took the ball when asked, and he basically showed the young guys coming up. You're thinking Jordan Hicks, you're thinking Housley, what it meant to like pitch in high leverage situations for the St. Louis Cardinals. So I like it. I definitely think your ideas are a lot more realistic than mine. Mine is kind of a fever dream. I would love if the Cardinals brought back Kyle Gibson. And I think the Cardinals would love if they brought back Kyle Gibson. Now, okay, yeah, you're going to say, well, they had their chance. They declined their team option for him in 2025. Yes, they did. That team option was worth $13 million. Given where the Cardinals were and salaries that they had promised already to other pitchers and their whole plan to reduce payroll, it made sense to let both Gibson and Lance Lynn go. By declining those options, they cleared $25 million off the books for next year. However, they left the door open, and I think the Cardinals were, pretty honest with Kyle Gibson and saying, hey, this is something we would like to revisit. This is something we have to do now, but it doesn't mean we're closing the door for good. And in a perfect world, the Cardinals trade Nolan Arenado, and they're able to kind of go out and revisit Kyle Gibson's market. Because I don't think they actually really wanted to let him go at the end of the year. I think they wanted to stay, and I think Kyle Gibson wanted to stay too. I mean, he calls St. Louis home, a Mizzou product. He was great for this club in 2024. Awesome dude, just stand-up guy. He was voted the Clubhouse Award for the St. Louis Writers Dinner. Tickets still available. But like, I think what he brings to the rotation last year would be so helpful in 2025. And yes, I hear the clamor. Okay, if the Cardinals bring back Kyle Gibson, there's no room in the rotation. Trade Steven Matz. Now we're talking. So perfect world, Cardinals fever dream. Trade Nolan Arenado, trade Steven Matz, re-sign Kyle Gibson. That is, I think, what they're like. If I'm John Mozeliak, an idea that he's like, yeah, I'd be on board with that. I don't see the likelihood of that happening. Each day that Nolan is not traded is another day that increases the odds of all of these guys signing elsewhere. The Baltimore Orioles need a pitcher. Kyle Gibson was great there too. Really well received in Baltimore. They also, have missed out on a ton of pitchers. So I don't think Kyle Gibson will be available when it comes time for the Cardinals to spend money, but I would love it if he was.
Yeah, you have to imagine if Baltimore's interested in a guy like Charlie Morton, they certainly have to be interested in a guy like Kyle Gibson. And I agree with you. I think he would be a great fit to come back into that clubhouse. Shameless plug. St. Louis Baseball Writers Dinner. Tickets selling out fast. Get yours now. Come see us. Am I hearing, is Kyle going to be joining us? Is he receiving an award as well?
Yes, he's on our awards list. So, I mean, what more could you ask for, right? January 19th, downtown St. Louis. Maybe the snow will melt. Hang out with Kyle Gibson, me, Trevor Rosenthal. Doesn't get any better than that.
It could potentially be, yeah. And it's coming up quick next weekend. Am I right? Next weekend?
Yeah, next weekend.
Next weekend, we're going to be, yeah, we're getting together. Up till that point, depending on what happens between now and then, maybe be the most exciting event that happens this offseason for the St. Louis Cardinals. So pretty big deal.
The 65th annual St. Louis Baseball Writers Dinner is the place to be, the hot topic of the offseason. Wow, look how far we've come, Trevor. What a time to be alive.
Hey, the fans should be thankful they have us.
Honestly. And you know what? I think we'll deliver. We'll put on a show. It should be really fun, though. All jokes aside, Ozzie Smith will be receiving the highest honor we offer with the 1985 team, the NL Championship team, will be recognized as well. Ryan Helsley will be the St. Louis Baseball Man of the Year. Mason Wynn, Rookie of the Year. Brendan Donovan, Comeback Player of the Year. And we'll have a ton of minor league awards to give out as well. So should be a really fun time. Tickets are still available, but not many. So buy them today. Hopefully we'll see you there. Trevor, we will be reunited in less than 2 weeks. Winter warm-up coming up hot. So hopefully it actually does warm up, because if I step foot in 8 inches of snow in St. Louis, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had warm weather. In all the years that I've attended the winter warm up, it's always been relatively cold or freezing cold. So don't get your hopes up too high, Katie.
I know. I know. Very sad, but we'll make it work. You can follow us on Twitter at Card Territory. Like and subscribe to our page on YouTube. Find us on Spotify and Apple. You know the drill. I'll be back on Friday with a special guest that I'm looking forward to announcing later. And Trevor will be back next week. We hope we'll have some news for you by then. But until then, he's Trevor Rosenthal. I'm Katie Woo. Thanks as always for joining. We will talk soon.